What's up? Thanks for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell. I'm here with Jim Marsh from the Jim Marsh Company, and he implements AI and automation solutions for enterprise level and multi-unit operators, and he's got some really great insights. But first, before we get into this, Jim, is that an Emmy behind you?
Yes. What's up, Jason? Thanks for having me. Yes, those are from my days at HBO. I was there for 15 years or so. Amongst other things, my focus was really building up and scaling their digital marketing and social media practice and some early days AI work. So those were actually from some interactive storytelling and marketing campaigns that we did for Westworld. It was a lot of circa 2016, 2017 initiatives. So chatbot technology at the time, but not to get too fancy, but we, tried some interesting technology implementations like a neural network with its own ontology, et cetera, which basically meant that we could tell a story using a chatbot that kind of extended the world of the show and helped us promote the concept of the show.
Okay, so tell me more about chatbots. Like, how did you implement a chatbot, and why did it matter for, say, Westworld?
Right. So I think certainly at the time and still today, chatbots help you scale your interactions with a customer, right? When you could move from having just a single person deal with all customer service issues, regardless of what it was, how simple it was, every industry, but certainly hospitality has moved towards scaling that, right? How do you actually use logic programmed into software to help aid and scale that customer experience? And if done well, then you can save a lot of time and money and actually have a really good customer experience at the same time, because you are helping to solve their problems, answer their questions. And because it recognizes natural language, they don't have to be responsible for navigating a complex website and looking and digging, right? They can just ask questions. And because, as you know, the tech has gotten so much better at understanding natural language, these things are pretty sophisticated at this point. So for us at HBO, it was about how do you tell a story, right? Or extend a story through a virtual character of sorts. And it was great from a creative perspective, but it also really helped us understand things like personalization. How do you use AI to scale personalization, which from a marketing perspective and from a customer service perspective is really important. But I'll say this, and again, this, when you're automating, you have to really think about what that customer experience is going to be and make sure that you are preserving the human side of that as much as possible and creating the right kind of conditions and settings for where a real person needs to be involved, that they're able to step in seamlessly and provide people with that best experience.
So, so you were implementing chatbots in 2016. What was the character's name in Westworld? The AI?
Aedan. And that was, we worked very closely with the producers and writers of the show. So that's the name that they gave him. He was your virtual concierge bot.
Okay. So did people know that they were interacting with an AI at the time?
Yeah. I mean, that was part of the narrative, right? And part of the whole concept of the show. For those who haven't seen it, it's essentially a theme park, right? Not unlike Disney World, where you would show up and it's this really immersive park set, at least initially in the Wild West. The first season in particular is great. It's a fun watch. But the whole idea is that what they were called the hosts, right? They were essentially lifelike androids or AI robots, right? And I almost said sentient there. I think that's part of the whole concept of the show is where do they go from being just pure robots to being sentient beings. And that was part of the kind of philosophical exploration of the show. But the character of Aedan was meant to sort of represent this using real life technology that existed circa 2016, which was essentially chatbots. So again, I'm a sci-fi geek at the end of the day. So this was kind of a dream project for me. And it's sort of like, well, where does this stuff start and how does it work? And, ultimately, how can it scale? These are kinds of the kinds of things that fuel my inspiration and my thinking and the stuff I like to put out into the world.
So how do you think that the psychology has changed from 2016 to 2025, where people know that they're talking to an AI? Or, I mean, do you disclose it? Do you not disclose it? I mean, with my stuff, we always disclose
Yeah.
it, just because it's like you don't want to lie to people. But it's getting to a point where you cannot tell.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm glad that you take that approach. I think that more and more we are, as we enter what I kind of call the synthetic world, where so much of what we are dealing with and experiencing, the content that we are exposed to, the ideas that we think about or are shared with us, so much of this is driven by algorithms and increasingly created by AI and technology. I think that trust becomes more scarce than it's ever been before. And I think that for that reason, you want to be really clear and direct with when people are having a synthetic experience, meaning when they're talking to a chatbot, right? I think that transparency is key. And I think that there are some real benefits that businesses and customers can get from this, right? Like your best trained chatbot is actually going to be an amazing customer service representative, right? So in theory, it's a good customer experience, not the complete customer experience. And again, there's no substitute for a hospitality professional or professional in any industry who is experienced and is prioritizing empathy and their relationship with the customer. But if AI can help us scale that and reserve the people, especially our best people, for where it matters the most, that's a really good use of resources.
I'm starting to think that there are like layers to customer experience, right? Right, where they almost expect an AI to communicate with them at a certain level, like to do basic things like book an appointment or book a reservation or answer a basic question. Like in hospitality, there's like in bars and restaurants, there's like basically 5 questions. Like, I left something there. What do you have that's gluten free? How do I get there? And how do I get this offer or whatever? So at what point is the handoff? Like, at what point where does the consumer expectation change from wanting the AI experience to, we've been trained to like not want things now, but we want them right now.
Right.
And we expect personalization and I don't know. It just seems interesting to me how we've come to expect this, and it is strange to me why people are reluctant to adopt this technology. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Why people are reluctant to interact with it, or why a business, for example, might be reluctant to implement it?
The latter? Second one, the latter.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I completely think it's true that we're AI and chatbots are, as you said, an expected part of the customer experience, and in many cases, honestly preferred. People tend to like working with intelligent bots, right? That can, as long as they're helpful and accurate and aren't wasting their time, right? We all know the frustrating side of just like these phone menus where it's like it takes you what would probably take 10 times longer to get to a basic answer if you ever get there, right? So that's the example of the poor experience. But when done well, right, everyone knows how to go to a website at this point, and there's certain things, to your point, that they're looking for, right? So if you could take the equivalent of an FAQ that you have on your website and put that in interactive form, so that like the most basic, most pressing questions are easy to get to, easy to have answered, and have answered accurately, then that's great. Now, where do humans need to be involved? One, they need to make sure that those systems are actually working, that they're accurate, that they are getting better as you learn more about your customers, that's how this tech is designed, right? It's intelligent technology, right? So it should be learning. You should be working with it to ensure that it is getting smarter as it goes, right? So that its knowledge base and little nuances start to become more sophisticated as things go on. So you need somebody, presumably like you, right, who can help to ensure that those systems are actually set up to get smarter and make sure that they're taking feedback and getting better and better. This is not set it and forget it technology in that way, right? But I think what's even more interesting, especially when I think about a restaurant owner or something like that, is what does that free you up to do, right? Where should your time go if it's not answering basic questions on the phone? And when I say you, I mean obviously the owner, but also the staff that they're leading as well, like in being really conscious and deliberate about where that time goes in terms of managing the experience. Because, I think more and more that frees organizations, professionals to be more creative, right? And to focus even more on the human experience, and think about, what is going to really, and you know this better than anybody, right? Which is like, it is those little intangibles, those little nuanced details that can make all the difference in a customer's experience. If they're eating at a restaurant, or they're buying a new type of liquor or a different kind of beverage, it is the experience of how seamless it was to get in and out. Were people paying attention? Were people making eye contact? Were people anticipating their needs, right? Were they anticipating pauses, right? Were they proactive in terms of offering specials, or for a certain customer that just wants to get in and out? Can you sense that body language and say, you seem like maybe you're in a hurry, right? How can we ensure that you are getting exactly what you need from this? And those little nuances, certainly AI is not in a place yet that it can read body language and verbal pauses and things like that. So I encourage professionals to spend more of their resources in those areas. But that said, AI can help you get better at those things too, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, because that's certainly an area that I focus on.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
Okay. So for me, my focus has been around training, enablement, and strategy for professionals. So that's whether that's corporate executives, or that's business owners, whether they own restaurants or food or beverage products, et cetera. It's designing systems and training programs so that they can essentially work more effectively with AI, right? And I think this is an important detail that isn't fully understood by everybody, is that AI is not here to just replace us. It can't, right? It needs to be built on existing intelligence or knowledge, right? So again, like where your automation offerings make sense, it's because of your experience and understanding how these businesses work. And you're able to kind of help them scale because they are built on your own experiences, right? So what I do is I will develop training and then a basic system for a founder or an executive or a business owner that essentially helps them scale their own intelligence, right? What are the things that you are good at? How can you be 10 times better at them, right? How do you move faster? How do you make better decisions, or both, right? And that's what it comes down to for me, is like using it as a force multiplier to be the greatest version of what you already are. And if that means doing things better or faster or both, that's what AI has the potential to unlock, with some very simple reframing of these of the systems that you might already use.
Have you, when you say things like that, like I think of in terms of context, like in the early days of AI, you were able to give it a limited amount of context. You're like, this is the one page of all of our stuff. Now we can read websites, we can feed it entire knowledge bases, give it millions of characters of context. So it really understands your tone of voice, how you communicate with people, your level of empathy, what handoff points there are. What kind of stuff are you doing that are you advising people to do as far as like implementing, like uploading their brain into an AI and then duplicating themselves so that they're more efficient?
Yeah, that's exactly the line of how I approach all of this, right? It is contextual training for your AI system of choice, right? And I think that's a big piece of it for me is, um, you know, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, you name it, all of these different platforms are excel in their own ways, right? And they change all the time. So I never want to be beholden to any one system, right? I want to be able to move independently based on whichever one meets my needs. So what I've developed is my own framework and methods for essentially creating a very basic training system that can be very powerful, right? So what does that actually mean? Okay, that means a system of documents that helps do more or less three things. One is it clarifies your intention, right? Because intention is everything when it comes to working with generative AI, because AI will send you fast and far down all kinds of different paths. But if
And it
you aren't
also
really clear
like
with what
it
you're
also
trying to
it also
go,
kisses your ass a lot.
totally, that's absolutely true. And honestly, that's one of the biggest risks is like it will, if you're not constantly guarding against that, it will just reinforce your own mistakes or bias or whatever it is, right? So I have this sort of simple framework that I use is it's like the human AI human, right? So always starting with yourself and what you know to be true, right? So in the case of what I was describing, it's like, okay, what really are your goals as a person, as a business, et cetera? Being as clear as possible and detailed as possible so that when you feed that into an AI system, it knows exactly what you're trying to do. And it's based in reality, right? It's not based in what it is going to come up with. Then once you're in this generative environment, that's when you can move fast, you can explore, you can try things, but then you always need to bring it back to the humans, right? To make sure that they're actually accurate and that they make sense and use your own creativity and use your own judgment at that point. So again, like the most important things I think for anybody to know is one, you have to be really clear with your intention when using this kind of tech. Two, you need to structure your system so that it can support you as much as possible. What is AI going to help you with? What is it not going to help you with? Where do you need people? Where can you benefit from automation, et cetera, right? It's not an either or humans or automation. It's really about the combination of the two and starting to think about yourself as a conductor, right? When you have not just someone who's playing the instrument, but somebody who is like helping to really bring together people and AI in the most effective way possible. And then the third piece of that is constant optimization, right? And just like we talked about, it's like you got to make sure that these systems are working, that you're improving them, that they're evolving as people and tech sort of evolve and change, which is happening pretty quickly. So these kinds of skills and this way of thinking are really important, but it's something that you can start relatively cheaply and effectively with the tech that's right in front of you, just by having the right way to approach it. And the kinds of systems that I develop help you structure that in such a way that's clear and that you get the immediate benefit from. And then you can start to scale and evolve in ways that will be incrementally helpful.
Do you ever get involved with data and or content production for clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think I have some pretty strong feelings on that, right? Again, I think that when it comes to data, it can be extremely powerful, but I never want to start with data on its own, right? I always want to start with instinct, hypotheses, goals, et cetera, right? I believe that, just setting AI loose in a sea of data is only going to be so helpful because the AI needs to know what you're trying to do with the data. If you can start,
are you talking about in terms of like business intelligence, like, tracking
100%.
the cost of an avocado over a year or something?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you just, in terms of business intelligence, if you just have like a sea of customer data or your transactional data or you name it, right? If you just set that in front of an AI, that's like really a fraction of the equation, right? That's just a small piece of it. But if you're not deliberate and like, what do you actually want to get from the data, right? Like, where do you see, like, what are you asking AI to do? What are you having it answer for you? What do you want it to look for? How do you even want to query things that you're not looking for, right? It's like oftentimes people will have this infrastructure or these systems, data supported with an AI layer, but they don't know what to ask of it, right? So it's about helping to like be really clear on what you're asking for and helping it support or at least qualify or challenge your business goals, right? But you have to have the right prompting systems in place in order to do those things, right? Your data.
Right, so this is what you're talking about with intentionality.
Make your
so
systems get better. It's not.
So, oops. Yeah,
go ahead.
Looks like our internet's a little spotty. So this is what you're talking about with intentionality.
Yeah,
like it's okay. It'll upload in the background, and I'll edit all this out. So this is what you're talking about with intentionality with your AI, saying like this is the destination point, this is where we want to be, and then saying here's all the data that we have now. How do we get to this destination point? Rather than saying, what do you think we should do?
That's exactly right. Or just like, tell me about my data, right? It's having really smart human intelligence first, right? So what are your goals as a business, right? Like where do you, and I think the sharper you can be, and there's a lot to be said for gut and lived experience where it's like, you know what, I tend to think we have an opportunity to increase profits by doing X, or we have an opportunity to attract this type of customer, or get this more return visits from this type of customer, right? If you can put those kinds of hypotheses in place and then have the data enforce or actually tell you that, and I think what we're saying about sort of bias and like not letting it be just a cheerleader or yes man, right? Like you want to be asking it like things like, take the stance like I'm completely wrong about this. Now argue against the points that I've just made. I do that a lot in my own work. I will have AI essentially take on an antagonistic role with me. I usually try to keep it polite. Occasionally I'll say, just eviscerate me. Don't worry about my feelings at all. But that's a really effective way to get sharper. So that's, again, a lot of what I will do for my clients is set them up with like highly personalized prompting frameworks. So it's like, how do we find very specific use cases? What are you actually trying to do in your business? Let's make sure that AI is set up so that you have some very specific use cases to help you get there, right? Again, so that this isn't theoretical. This isn't like maybe AI can help in some way because everyone knows it's an important thing. No, this is like right away, how do we take any tool that, costs you $20 a month, structure the way that you work with it in such a way that you're going to realize the immediate benefit. And that's just from setting up the contextual environment, right? With some like pre-programming, like you said, and then making sure that your prompts are like really clear, really well articulated, and mapped against specific processes, right? So that you can actually realize the benefit. And ideally you can like bring other people in your organization on so that you're not doing all of the work with AI yourself. The more the entire workforce is empowered to work with AI, the better off they're going to be.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, just going back to context, it's funny how people, the common refrain with prompt engineering and AI is garbage in, garbage out. Right. But it's like, you can give it entire libraries of information now and say that this is what I want. How do you deal with conflicts when there's a conflict in that information? Is there ever a conflict? Does that ever happen?
There's conflict, and then there are flaws, right? Which are very different things, right? So flaws, I find flaws deeply concerning because if you feed flawed data to an AI system, just by the nature of the way the AI system works, it will continue to build on and multiply that flaw because it doesn't know it's a flaw, obviously, right? So it is just going to continue to give you more and more flawed decisions or recommendations or answers because it's working off of faulty data. So I am the biggest proponent of data hygiene. You are better off dealing with a more limited set of data that has been actually gone through quality control, ideally to begin with human quality control. So, even if you're going to start with, a night or a week worth of sales data, something like that, right? That you are in a position, or somebody that you trust is in a position to like audit and make sure that like it is, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be logical, right? It needs to be in line with the kinds of business results that you are accustomed to seeing, and that you as a professional and someone with experience knows like, yes, this more or less looks right. If you feed that in, you're going to be able to do a lot more with that set of data. Now, if as far as conflicts in the data, right, where you might find something disparaging or an anomaly, that's when it gets really interesting. So if you're dealing with clean data that's real, but you see something that like doesn't fit into the patterns you might expect, that to me signals that that's either a problem or an opportunity or both, right? So if that means that something spiked, and an AI system these are kinds of things you want to ask AI for. Is anything unexpected in this data? If you're seeing something spiked on a night, then trying to reverse engineer that and working with AI to say, well, what are the possible causes of this spike? Is it a particularly good bartender, sales facility, whatever it is, right? You can start to like figure out those specific levers that might have caused the spike. And then, you can try and recreate it, which could be really good for your business. Or if like something went down that you would be unaccustomed to seeing, you want to likewise figure out the cause, because maybe there's a problem or an oversight, or if you're seeing that customers aren't returning due to one specific server, et cetera, right? That's cause for action to be taken at this point. Never take it on its face value. You want to do some real investigation and apply some human rigor to ensuring those anomalies are actually anomalies. But those directionally can be really powerful.
I think kind of where the rubber meets the road for the people that might be listening to this is auditing and verifying or disproving information that you're getting, because there's a lot of very prevalent POS systems where we get our sales information, and increasingly there's AI integrations and all these things. Like OpenAI just integrated with Spotify. They're going to be synthesizing the information for you, and right. I think it's more likely than not that they're going to put a rosy picture on it and synthesize the information in a way that is not necessarily helpful for you, and it's going to be, in my words, kiss your ass. And I think that using independent systems like Claude or OpenAI or Gemini or whatever, the Grok or whatever it ends up being, to analyze the information that you've gotten, and just to at least verify or disprove the information, is going to be the kind of the next frontier, as far as like the conscientious operator who's just be like, that's like either like, I'm looking at an empty dining room right now, or like, how do I open up 3 and 4 more locations?
That's really interesting. And I think that's a really good point. And I think that's why for any business professional, regardless of industry, but certainly for business owners, and certainly for business owners where like every unit, every margin means all the difference in terms of like a successful business or a growing business, or not, having a level of AI fluency is increasingly essential, right? And I think that you just proposed some really practical ways of thinking about this, but even things like knowing, when if you're signing contracts with your vendors, your software providers, knowing the questions to ask, and in some cases being able to audit paper trails, understanding what are the sort of contractual stipulations if errors were to come up, how they actually look for these kinds of errors. And then, yeah, I do agree that like you want to at least have it, not that you need to do all of this yourself, right? That's where professionals like you and I come in, Jason. But you want to know the questions to ask, and you need to understand the basic risks. So having again, that's like for me, my practice is more about arming with people with just enough knowledge about how this stuff actually works, where the pitfalls are, where the opportunities are, so that they can use their judgment and make wise decisions. And, if they need to bring on partners, They know who to bring on, and they're not just taking the word of these massive platforms that are moving quickly and then trying to increase their market share as quickly as possible, and don't really care about the little guys or the medium-sized guys out there.
Yeah, their own agendas are typically first. All right, so I wanted to give you an example of something that actually happens that's done by humans, and get your take on whether or not this is something that can or should be done by humans or done by AI and automation. So at 11 Madison Park, famous restaurant, one of the best restaurants in the world consistently for decades. They employ people called dream weavers, and what they do is they understand their guests on a level that is borderline creepy. And I've been there before, and it was crazy. And so they have people that they do based on the information that is available to them, which is typically, I'm guessing, by a Google search. They find the people that are dining in the restaurants, and then they make these like ultra personalized experiences for them. And it's like, this is up to and including things like 3D printed images and like little dongles and little things that you unwrap at the table. Like, they're expecting you for a very long time. It's an experience that they anticipate is going to be a once in a lifetime experience for the guest. Now, when you think about the amount of data that's available on anybody for sale by these huge, massive data brokers, you can just with a phone number or with an email address, which is typically what you provide, a name, phone number, and email address, which is what you typically provide to get a reservation at pretty much anywhere, whether it's Open Table, 11 Madison Park, 7 Rooms Talk, whatever it is, Resi. That information can be ported out to a company like, say, People Data Labs, and then sent back the information saying that this is the person's job. This is the person's job title, because it looked up on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn sold the information into the centralized database, resold it to a bunch of different data brokers, and you can find this information and synthesize it. Now, I've been tampering with this idea, but then I canceled it because you could just grab it via API. Right. You can just say like this information is in, you pull it and quote, enrich the data. Is that something that you would, I ultimately killed this idea because it was definitely on the other side of creepy. It was definitely creepy. It was not fun or cool, but, at what point is that going to be something that people do? And I feel like if I thought of this as this like kind of layman, like this software guy who doesn't know how to code and doesn't know it, and if I thought of that, like, they use that for credit card companies all the time. Like, why not? Like, when is that going to start happening with restaurants and like buying a Slurpee at 7-Eleven?
Yeah. Look, so first of all, data and privacy concerns are real, right? And they've never been more real. And, I think that there's growing literacy, especially amongst younger generations that are aware and mindful of just how much of their personal data is around and available out there. So I urge everybody to understand what you're talking about and really be mindful of things like this, because, especially as you start to employ them on behalf of your business, there's some real reputational impact that you're thinking about. And that can be for good or that can be for bad, right? I think in the case of 11 Madison Park, that's part of it. And they're using it for, altruistic reasons and to elevate the customer experience pretty significantly, right? And I think that's, having been in a few of these environments, it's pretty cool. Actually, quick side note, when I was one of the campaigns for Westworld, we did a event called Data for Dinner, and it was exploring this idea and making it, kind of leaning into the creepy factor, where it was a sit-down dinner in Las Vegas, and the servers were essentially given very personal information, and they would bring it up to you at the table. And people were expecting this. It was on behalf of Westworld, but it was not to give them the most pleasant dining experience. It was to get them to think about this, right, and where all of this was going. So this is something that's like near and dear to my heart. But listen, I think the positive side of this is that when it's treated with respect for your customer, there's a lot to be said for improving the customer experience, right? And so, again, I think that this is about using technology and AI and data in responsible ways and ethical ways, right? But that if you're using this to help the customer's experience and anticipate meeting their desires and their hopes and their dreams, right? Because at the end of the day, like people go out to eat or they make beverage decisions based on stories and experiences and emotions, right? That's so much of the decision making process. When you can use the tech that's available, but then use humans on top of it to, one, ensure quality control, right? Because if you were to go sideways, like, if you were to miss the mark on something like what you're describing, a highly personalized experience, that could go bad, right? Or it could it could fall flat at the least, right? But I think you also want to think about, all right, what does this mean? And right, so empowering your people to decide, well, what is an additive experience? And maybe it's less about having something that feels creepy, but more just about knowing, and again, you would know better than I about the kinds of data points that are available. But for example, I think I used the example before where sometimes I know that hey, I got to be in and out of this meeting. I have 50 minutes. And so I'm not here for chit chat. I kind of want to get everything taken care of. If I was able to have a restaurant know that about me and know with certainty that I was going to be given the attention and the respect that I want and deserve as a paying customer, and that I would be out of there as quickly as I need while having the experience, that would be great for me, right? So that's, I think, just one very specific use case that is personalized. But I also think all of this is for think of personalization not just for the specific customer, but for your specific business, right? So the more you can understand your customers and the nuances that go into your specific business and what people like and what they don't like, and the more you can identify signals that will help you understand that, the better the experience that you can have. But again, put the people on the top of that decision-making totem pole and use the data to support it, and let those people dream and infer and really think and ground themselves in the customer experience and human empathy, and that can be really powerful.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Jim. This has been Jim Marsh from the Jim Marsh Company. If you want more information about Jim and his company, it's really incredible what he puts up for free on LinkedIn, including what he alluded to with his sale framework. But I'll put the link in the comments, or I'll put a link in the show notes, and so you can find more information about this. But reach out to Jim, especially if you're in a place where things are going well and you're ready to do a lot more of that. He did this kind of stuff he did this kind of interaction for HBO for a while. And if you look in the background, you can see he's got fucking Emmys, 2 Emmys. So Jim, is there anything else that you want to leave with us?
No, thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I think that, again, there's so much hype around this stuff out there that having we'll call people like you and I Sherpas to provide real solutions and context, right, for people that are really trying to gain the benefit of this really powerful transformative technology without falling into the hype cycles, without stepping into pits of waste of resources, of time, of money, of investing in really expensive technology that may be wholly unnecessary, of things like you mentioned, being able to understand where to look to audit the data that's coming back to you, and not just assuming that everybody has your best interests in mind, and that there are independent people that really are here to serve you and to give you the unique attention that you deserve. I think that's really important for people to know. So Jason, keep up the great work yourself.
Thanks, buddy. Okay. Yeah. If you haven't jumped on your free 14-day accelerator trial, head to jlittrell.com. Jim Marsh, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you on LinkedIn, and I will see you soon.
Sounds good. Take care, man.